can't say that there was a private equity industry when I got into it. I think it found me as much as I found it. I had graduated with a degree in math and worked as a computer programmer for a couple of years for a Midwestern aerospace company, and it was definitely not the right move for me. And after a couple of years there, I moved back to home, which is in the Detroit area, and joined General Motors. And while I was there, I was kind of figuring out what my next move was going to be. I mean, General Motors is a big employer in the area. My dad said to me, well, if you don't know what you want to do, go where the opportunities are. And I thought that was good advice. And what I found at GM is that they had an opportunity. They were actually one of the first that had programs to develop not just women, but young people that they wanted to keep in the business. And they would pay for you to go to business school. They'd pay your tuition, pay for your books, pay to move you, and keep you on 50% salary, whatever you were making before. It was a scholarship in which I applied for, and I won it amongst, I think there were 3 or 4 other people in my class year, and I went to Wharton, compliments of General Motors. It was a great deal. And when I came out, I joined the GM Treasury office in New York City. And I love New York, and I love being there, and I like my job. But the longer I was there, I realized all roads in terms of the hierarchy and promotion would lead back to Detroit. And I really wanted to stay longer term in the New York area. And at about that same time, the GM pension fund, which was the largest in the country, if not the largest, was just beginning to build its own internal staff. And to make a long story short, I joined the GM pension fund, which was really considered like kind of a backwater move by my friends and colleagues in the Treasury office. Like, why would you go there? And I was like the 10th person maybe they hired. And as a colleague told me later, it was like drinking from the fire hose, taking a sip of water from the fire hose, because we saw everything. We had the money, the biggest plan in the country, and they were beginning to do some interesting things. And so I was on the kind of the ground floor of that opportunity, and was there for a good 10 years, 84, and I left in 98, so longer than 10, 82 to 98. And, you know, I saw everything, and I was the first person that they assigned to work on this thing called venture capital and private equity. And so I met a lot of people, and that whole business end of, for the pension fund grew tremendously. And when I left, there were like 10 people in the private equity group and 100 people overall in the pension fund. So that grew tenfold just in terms of people. And I would have stayed longer, except there was a change of management at the top who wasn't excited about private equity, was more of a public guy. So I found an opportunity at Abbott Capital, which was, in hindsight, a tremendous opportunity as well, although it was not obvious at the time because I had to walk away from a car. I got a free car every year. I got a nice pension plan. I made a good salary, and I had executive dining room privileges, you know, and none of that was going to happen at Abbott. And even the annual comp was a bit of a cut, and I had to leave all those perks aside to join what I saw had more potential in the long run. And which it did obviously come to pass, but it was a growing industry. I wanted to stay in the private equity world. And Abbott was owned by 2 founders, one of which was retiring. So I saw that structurally there could be some more upside for me personally, equity ownership coming my way, which is how it did play out. And I gotta say, I was blessed that I was hired and approved by 2 white men who took me on as a third partner, other than the founders, and brought me in as a side-by-side equal, which I think was very brave of them at the time. And I think they wanted to expand. beyond just other white men, and I'm sure they could have found capable alternatives to me, but I was thrilled to be part of their team and be treated as an equal. And I always was treated with respect that way. And maybe that's rare breed, but I was also then in turn helped, as the firm grew, helped hire and promote and encourage 3 other female partners. So now we have 10 partners, 4 of which are women. And so I'm very proud of Abbott to be kind of in that rare breed of having a significant females at the senior partner ranks. Anyway, so Abbott joined in '98, and was very much involved in client presentations, general partner presentations, vetting different partners, growing our fund of funds business, and then ultimately some other product lines. And as the 2 founders, one retired and then another retired, became more involved in firm management and compensation and developing the firm and thinking of the future. And so that's where we are today. As the business has gotten so big, certainly we've seen pricing is certainly something to be concerned about. I mean, prices have only gone one way for the most part, whether you're a venture capital firm or a buyout firm paying 10 times versus 5 times, or a venture capital firm used to be, or Series A was a $2 to $3 million kind of pre-money. Now that's a seed round, and maybe an A is 10 to 15, and B is 50, and it goes up from there. So the whole pricing model is something to be concerned about. I don't know what to make of it. There's certainly lots of money in the industry, so we'll probably keep prices high for a while. But connected with that, one thing that concerns me is the alignment between the general partner and the limited partner, I think, is getting a little out of whack. And as it gets more out of whack, that definitely creates issues for limited partners. And the amount of capital that has been made in the business, especially on the GP side, has just been astronomical. Maybe I'm dating myself, but in the old days, a senior partner at a top tier private equity firm, over their lifetime of working there, say they work there 20, 30 years, maybe makes $100, $200 million. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But nowadays, that same general partner over maybe 20 years will make a couple $100 million per fund. And if they're around for 3 or 4 funds, you're looking at, billion, coming short of $1 billion. And these are top tier performing partners, don't get me wrong, but you have to ask, wow, did you create $1 billion worth of value? You did, because the formula says 20% of the gain. So obviously you did, but you have to wonder if the formula should be reevaluated at some level. And then when general partners start selling off their stakes or raising competing product lines and going in other directions, that's where maybe the alignment gets out of whack a bit. And that worries me about the industry. Certainly having all their data at their fingertips and being prepared to talk about their track record, and having an attributable track record goes a long way. Being able to explain their strategy and why the fund size that they're asking for makes sense, and how the partners have come together and what their experience is working together, what the strategy is, what makes them different. It's a very crowded field now. And to go to an institution and ask for money, you generally have to displace someone at this stage of the game. And so finding someone who's willing to take a chance on a new group, or maybe is dissatisfied with the current group that they're with. But it's a high bar, and you've got to have your act together. You've got to have your numbers together. You have to have all the hard questions thought through, and finding some good advisors along the way to ask you those hard questions, so you come in prepared. I think there's a lot of things LPs can do, and some of it's just starting to ask the question, what are you doing? What are you doing, to make sure that opportunities are open to all? And to make, I think that's maybe the most important thing. I don't think I'd be in favor of quotas or certain set numbers or freebies, because that comes back to haunt, because then someone says, oh, see, we tried and it didn't work. But I do think asking the questions and making sure the standards are applied equally. That sometimes I think women are expected to be perfect, and men can have flaws and they still get ahead. Oh, he's that way, but overall he's a good guy, so we'll take him on. Whereas women are, well, she's got that problem, so the same percentage of wrong in both cases, but somehow women are held to a higher standard. And I think that's a shame for the industry. And I think just making sure the standard is equally applied, and in some cases, taking someone on who maybe needs a little nurturing in or a little education or a little training in a certain area, can have benefits multiple fold to the firm, and creates loyal employees. And the whole work from home thing has to be a great benefit for both sexes. Maybe it's a nightmare right now for people who have to also teach their kids at home, but having a little bit more flexibility on the whole work-life balance may go a long way as well. And the whole virtual environment should help with that. And I think that's something that big and small companies can do. At the very beginning, there were actually women who reached out to me, and I want to call out one in particular, Betty Fagan. And I uncovered a sheet that I was a member of the Fagan group early on. She reached out to me, and Betty Fagan ran the private equity program at the Ford Foundation. But there were like 10 or 12 of us in this group. Sue Carter from the Common Fund, Nina Shirego, Betty Sheets from IBM, myself, Helen Fox O'Brien at the Church Pension Fund. And there were only 10 of us, maybe, in this women's group that began in the mid-'80s. And then, I'd like to think that maybe she helped me, and maybe I have mentored some other people along the way, or have at least been a bit of a role model, because in the process of working full time and having 3 kids and traveling, there weren't many role models there for me, so maybe I was for someone. And I'd like to have that whole mentorship and philosophy carry forward, and hopefully those who come behind me can continue to do their bit to be part of a network, be part of an open, honest environment, helping create the environment that all types will nurture and thrive in. That's only got to be good for everyone. There's a lot of opportunity still left to come in the business, but it is more crowded. So keep your eyes open, I would say, for those pockets of new areas of growth. Well, I would encourage them a couple things. One is to look for kind of ground floor opportunities. It's benefited me twice, if not 3 times. And look for opportunities that may not be obvious. It wasn't obvious when I joined the GM pension fund. It wasn't obvious when I joined Abbott and left all those great perks. But you've got to balance maybe a little bit of downside with where the upside is, and make some smart risk reward trade-offs for your career. And don't just go for the top dollar. It may be something that's not as obvious, but that has longer legs that you can grow with long term. And I guess I encourage women, but really my sons as well as I have a daughter too, to think long term and to look for not obvious, but maybe long run opportunities. I've also, I think women need to be a bit more comfortable in their own skin, and that's hard to come by. But to think of a bit of promoting yourself or putting yourself out there, taking a few extra steps. I know several women who have hired a coach, a professional career coach, and I think it's expensive at the beginning, but it pays for itself, and so it's certainly something to think about. I think the networking events that Falkmarks and others have done are great ways to build up your network and make sure you're known out there, and not just go, get out of your comfort zone. And I think it's easy to stay in your comfort zone. And that's where maybe a career coach or networking opportunities or some of those ground floor opportunities that may not be obvious gets you out of your comfort zone and maybe helps develop you personally and professionally and hopefully economically as well. But yeah, it was kind of in the works, and that's a young person's game, and it's time for the next generation to show their stuff and take the business to the next level. And I wish them luck. There's some challenges ahead for sure, but that's always the case.